You're listening to the Vikes Verified podcast.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to episode 91 of the Vikes Verified podcast. Finally recapping a game. The Minnesota Vikings season is officially underway, and the Vikings go out and get a home win this past weekend against the Las Vegas Raiders, 24-23, comeback win, marking the first preseason win in Kevin O'Connell and Kwesi's leadership and the first preseason win in 5 years, Matt. How exciting was that to come out on top and have our new kicker, Reichard, win the game for us?
Yeah, it feels good. I mean, it's a long time coming. I'm sure KLC is happy to get one under his belt for the preseason, but no better way to get that win than to have a walk-off with our rookie kicker, Reichard, who continues to excel and seem to provide some consistency at that position, at least in albeit a small sample size. Seems to be a very confident kicker, obviously from Alabama, has had many big pressure situations. And you saw what the team did after he made that kick. They are hyping him up in his ear. So I think that was a great way to start off this preseason and help not only build his confidence, but this team. So good to chalk up a W there and a great overall win. We had multiple good performances that we'll dig into, but overall I think there's a lot of positives to pull from this first preseason game.
You're absolutely right. Tons to break down here today. But yeah, starting with Reichard, how exciting, right? You know, the Vikings known as a franchise that may be cursed with kickers, right? And for us to set a tone like that in the young man's career and get him an opportunity like that, his first time suiting up in purple, he takes advantage. And I think that means he's going to hit the ground running for us. Knock on wood there, Matt. But I'm really excited for his future, as well as a lot of young guys on this football team. We were expecting young guys to make plays in preseason games, but I was blown away by the amount of young talent we had show up and show out really on Saturday. Obviously, the majority of eyes are on J.J. McCarthy in his debut, so why don't we just dig into that right away? Sam Darnold gets the first drive in this game, makes some really nice throws, some really nice touch throws over the middle. He leads us all the way down the field. The Vikings just not able to punch that one in the end zone. Went for it on fourth down, kind of threw Jalen Nailor a 50-50 ball, who Jalen Nailor very active in this game. Lots to talk about and be excited about with him as well. But then J.J. McCarthy comes in, and the stadium erupts, and that's a great thing to hear, right? In previous seasons, going and watching 3 quarters of Sean Mannion was not always necessarily the most fun thing to do. So, you get a guy like J.J. McCarthy on the field, the whole franchise trying to get behind him. He runs out on the field, and the stadium just explodes, and he kind of rolls from there. What did you see in the debut from McCarthy, both positively and negatively, that he put on display for the fans?
Yeah, the obvious negative is the interception. But again, it was a third down. Kene Nwangwu did get blown up, ended up kind of pushing McCarthy from the pocket. You see him just try to be that athlete and make the play. He just has to, and this will come with time, trust his throwing power and being able to lead that ball instead of trying to throw it right to him. And that's the difference between Jack Jones being able to undercut it versus hitting him in stride and maybe getting out of bounds on that play. So very close. I like the aggressiveness, and I really loved what he said after. He said that, Kevin O'Connell told him to have a goldfish memory and to just keep slinging it, and he said he did exactly that. He said it felt good to get that out of the way. He kept throwing the ball and being aggressive, and we saw the results from that. He hit Tristan Jackson on a long touchdown on the money, and then also hit Trent Sherfield on a wide-open out route there. So great to see him build some confidence after that rough start, and you could just see kind of his athleticism really showing its good side. I mean, he was moving in the pocket. He did stand in there when there was some pressure coming in, was able to make the reads against the defenses and really just provide a cool, calm, and collected type feel. So not only was I very satisfied with his performance, a lot of pundits around national media are also hyping him up as well, just really touting his athleticism, his professionalism, and his ability to make plays with his feet and his arms. So awesome start for him. I think Sam had a great start as well, so I feel very good about those two. I think that this QB room is in a good position for the state of where it's at right now. And, if we can start with Sam and he can have a hot start, great. We do have McCarthy in the wings, and I am not going to get to the point of pushing him into a starter role yet. But what we saw in that first showing was very positive, and I just was most impressed with his ability to bounce back from that interception.
100%. I like the goldfish mentality comment, the goldfish memory that he mentioned after the game, just moving forward and continuing to learn and develop. And that's what throwing interceptions is in the preseason, right? Learning experience. It's better for him to get these type of things on tape, things that he can learn from. But man, it's fun to watch him maneuver the pocket, throw on the run, had command of the offense the entire day. And I think the thing that stood out to me the most is just the fire that he plays with. You see the passion each and every play. You can really see his love for the game and his happiness for other teammates as they make plays, and kind of seeing these guys gravitate to him. It's just like, the unspoken thing in leadership. You kind of have it or you don't. And like, you can kind of see it on him right away that I think that the team just gravitates towards him, and whether he's actively trying to be a leader or not, I just think he has that quality that might not necessarily be able to develop, but it's just something you have. And you saw it a lot there on Saturday. And arguably could say that this QB room is in a better position than many years prior. You look at the stability of Kirk Cousins, very solid quarterback for us, but now you got two guys, right? You got two guys that can both play, and we'll see how Kevin O'Connell maneuvers this. Night practice tonight, big showing for fans. J.J. McCarthy actually sitting this practice out with knee soreness. What's your first read on that? Is there any world where, maybe J.J. McCarthy just got too much hype this weekend and they maybe tried to shut him down for this practice to kind of slow the hype building that the fans are putting on J.J. McCarthy?
Yeah, it seems that way to me. Knee soreness is such a vague injury term, and we didn't really hear anything about it in game, after game. It just kind of popped up before practice. To me, I think this is a way to kind of shield him from the national media. They know that there's going to be cameras left and right out there tonight. It's the biggest practice of the training camp session. Everybody after that performance is giddy about McCarthy, and they've always talked about making sure he hits the benchmarks in this developmental plan. And I think they want to do a good job of not blowing his head up too quick just because of one good preseason performance. We don't need to then escalate not only the fans, but then start the conversation of a QB battle already before the season's even started. So I think this team has a very strategic plan on how they want to lay this out, and it all starts with Sam Darnold being our QB1. I do not see a scenario where he doesn't start week one for us, even as well as McCarthy can play. I just don't think they're going to force their hand before they have to with a guy like Sam Darnold, who, until he shows that he can't do it, will at least be given a fair chance. So, to me, I think it's more of a cover-up and for them to keep shielding McCarthy while building his confidence in practice and inside the building walls. But overall, I'm not too worried about it. It's not a big injury. I don't think it's anything really to be worried about at all. And I think they're just more covering him and making sure that he gets to the goal end line that they have in mind for him.
For sure, and what an exciting time for us, right? I mean, just watching the development of both these guys, we'll see who gets the nod, and we'll see kind of how it goes from there. But I'm very, very confident in that position group. Now let's talk a little bit more about big performers in this game. A couple former alumni of the show, Bo Richter and Levi Drake Rodriguez, sticking out on the defensive front. Richter brings in 2 sacks, and Levi Drake brings in 1 himself. But one thing you can see with this guy, both these guys, is the high motor, right? We kind of knew that from Levi. It was in the scouting report. We didn't know a ton about Bo because he didn't get as many reps in college, really kind of broke out as a senior. But you see this guy and the strength he plays with, the ability to get to the quarterback, too. That was very impressive. And both these guys making a serious case to make this 53-man roster. I would say for sure 1 out of the 2 of them will make it. I would not be surprised to see both of them make it as well. 2 more preseason games, so more opportunity to prove yourself there. But it's just great to see guys who are undrafted or late-round draft picks play with an energy like that, because if you are a guy who's a little bit overlooked, you get drafted later or you don't get drafted, that's how you're going to make a name for yourself in this league, right? Vikings legend John Randall, for example, some of the best effort of all time on the defensive line. So great to see from the young guys. Who else did you like, and who else is raising their stock on this Vikings roster?
Yeah, shout out to Richter and Rodriguez. Great starts for them. I'm also going to go with Nick Muse. I think he not only played well against the Raiders, it seems as though him and McCarthy have somewhat of a connection.
They've got it going.
So I think that helps them a ton in this battle for that tight end 3 position with him, Tanyan, and N'Keal Harry. At first, it seemed as though Tanyan had the upper hand. With Tanyan somewhat taking a step back, Muse has now stepped into that spot and seems to, at least at the time being, have that tight end 3 spot leg up on it. So very happy to see what he was able to do in his chemistry with McCarthy. Tristan Jackson, we have long said that he's going to make the 53-man roster and provides not only a very valuable wide receiver piece, but he does have a very good relationship with Justin Jefferson, which cannot go unnoticed. Very impressed with his performance. And a few other names. Dwight McGlothern, this guy's going to be one of the toughest roster decisions for us. Has made plays, but there's just going to have to be some tough ones between McGlothern, Richter,
Duke Shelley,
Gabriel Murphy, Duke Shelley. There's a lot of on-the-bubble guys that we will touch on later in this, but very impressed with him. And I'll give you one more. Kene and Nwangwu kind of fell into somewhat of forgotten space from this last season. Didn't really have a lot of opportunities. I think dealt with some injuries.
Yep.
Against the Raiders, he shows his speed and ability, being able to break out and outrun everybody. We know what he can do as a kick returner. So I think if he can provide a little bit of an impact as a third running back, whether it's in the screen game or just a fill-in third down running back type of role, if he can provide that, I think that helps his roster chances a lot, especially with these new kickoff rules. So I think his stock is definitely moving up after this last weekend.
Yeah, and that was good to see, right? He's still fast. He's still got the speed, and he put that on display down the sidelines. A very explosive guy. Everything you hear about him, too, is he's just a great teammate. So pulling for Kene for sure. Now that, maybe it's what were you going to say?
I was going to say, why don't you touch on the other first-round pick, Dallas Turner, because I think he had some notable plays.
Oh, absolutely, and it's hard to not get excited about Dallas Turner. I think you shut him down the rest of the preseason based on what we honestly saw here in the first preseason game. But just the first step, just dip and rip around the left tackle, picks up an easy sack, had a pressure about 2 plays before that as well where he almost got to the quarterback. You can just see that he has a different first step, and that's what gets you drafted in the first round is having that kind of athleticism, having that kind of frame to match it. Dallas Turner looks like an absolute stud out there, and I think he's going to live up to that expectation. Him and Jonathan Grenard are going to carry a heavy weight for our pass rush with guys, longtime notable guys leaving, and I think these guys can step in and really put some fireworks on display this year. Dallas Turner is going to be a star for the Minnesota Vikings. Let's touch a little bit on the stock down category. Not something we always love to talk about, but you got to talk about some of these guys who, are on the bubble or trending in the wrong direction. And, it's hard to say because we've been pulling for him since day one, but Lewis Cine, first-round pick, it's just you really don't even see much effort from him anymore, and that's something that was kind of tough to see. I had eyes locked on him for the whole second half of that game. And it's one thing to not get a ton of opportunity or, not be in position to make play as a safety, but you at least want to see, high effort, right? Sprinting to the ball, looking alert out there. And I honestly just didn't see that. I just saw kind of Lewis Cine going through the motions, which was unfortunate, and it's a former first-round pick. But I really just don't see a world, Matt, where he makes this roster.
Yeah, as unfortunate as it is, something else that recently happened was the Vikings trading Andrew Booth to the Dallas Cowboys for Nashawn Wright, a third-round pick of the Cowboys. This, to me, screamed that Kwesi himself did not want to have the headline say Vikings cut second-round pick Andrew Booth. I think it was a great out for him in terms of being able to bring in another body, very similar age. This guy's much taller,
6'4",
different builds, but then buys him almost somewhat of an out and somewhat some more time. If he ends up working out, it looks great. If not, you cut a guy that you didn't draft, which I think has a different ring to it than potentially having the headline be Vikings cut first and second round pick Lewis Cine and Andrew Booth. So hoping the best for Nashawn Wright, but again, such a disappointing outcome from that draft class with Lewis Cine being likely cut, Andrew Booth now traded, and Brian Asamoah is at least showing flashes, but is fighting for a roster spot currently. So the top end of this class has left a lot left to be desired, and I think Kwesi is trying to find ways to minimize that kind of blowback from national media.
I agree with that 100%. And then just another couple guys we can touch on. Jay Ward, I have no concerns about his long-term future with the team, but I just think that the corner experiment maybe needs to be done. Mm-hmm. I just liked him a lot more at safety, a lot more versatile. You try to throw a guy who hasn't played much corner into press corner situations in live game action. It didn't go tremendously well for him, but still have optimism about his long-term role with the team. And my guy, Dwayne McBride, I'm pulling for him every week, Matt. That. He's my dynasty pick. Doesn't seem to get a ton of touches first and foremost, but you just don't see the explosiveness that you saw from him at UAB. Maybe that reflects on some of the competition he was playing at UAB. Maybe not some of the fastest guys on the field.
Yeah.
Dwayne McBride just looks a little bit more like a fullback out there. But he, we still got hope for him. Maybe he gets some goal line touches here these next couple weeks, and we can see what he can do with them.
Yeah, and it's been a slow start for McBride, like you said. I think we both were hoping for a little bit more of an impact from him. But again, with those 3 guys in front of him and Myles Gaskin being a veteran, he seems to be in somewhat of an interesting spot. A note on Jay Ward. I do agree. I think that Jay Ward may be a better fit at safety currently right now. But with the depth of that safety room, I actually don't mind trying to switch him to cornerback because I think there's more of a path to playing time there for him. So I think right now things are still a little bit raw. He has had some familiarity playing cornerback back in college, but obviously playing at the NFL level is a much different story. So I'm interested to see what it looks like in a couple weeks. I don't want them to give up on it quite yet, but it is an interesting dynamic to me and one that I hope turns out because this safety room is really one of the deepest in the league, and a guy in Theo Jackson would probably be starting in half to a third of the NFL teams, I truly believe.
Yeah, that might be true. And it's nice to see us, sitting Harrison Smith. No reason for him to even step on the field until week 1. Another guy who I want to see get shut down personally for the next 2 is Jalen Naylor. Based on the injury history alone, hasn't been able to stay healthy, but Vikings fans are seeing what this guy is when he's healthy. He is impressive. And his ability to kind of do some of the dirty work over the middle of the field, caught 3 to 5 digs in this game.
Heavily targeted.
Very targeted player. He's got good hands, got great speed. He just looks the absolute part out there. You can see the route running is on point. He's got good chemistry with both quarterbacks, and I think that you just shut him down at this point. You look at our first 3 games of the season and, the offensive firepower that we're going to have to beat San Francisco, to beat Houston, very high-powered offensive teams. You got to have your 3 top receivers healthy and ready to go for those games. So, let's get Jefferson, Addison, and Naylor off the field. Let's kind of more mental reps, right? I think these guys are ready to go physically. We just get them to a place where they're ready to come out week 1 and play. But Jalen Naylor kind of just took this wide receiver 3 role and just kind of, I think he just ran with it. He won the job early in camp, and I think he's going to cruise to a nice little season. I could see 600 to 900 yards out of him this year.
Definitely. I think Naylor has had probably the best camp out of, the big names that we expect to play well. If he can stay healthy, the sky is the limit for him, and I think he has entrenched himself as the wide receiver 3. Touching on another former draft pick, this one in Jacqueline Roy. We were very high on him when he first got drafted in his first year here, but so far throughout training camp, he has not made much noise and has been somewhat overshadowed by a guy like Levi Drake Rodriguez. Jerry Tillery's a veteran. You've got Jonah Williams, who doesn't really play DT, but is showing to be an impactful player on the D-line. It seems as though there's the roster spots on the D-line are slimming out each week with the other guys raising their competition. Do you see Jacqueline Roy being a potential cut candidate when it comes to the end of training camp here?
Oh, man, I would have a hard time believing it, especially with just the build and the athleticism. You'd think that he'd be able to make some plays for us. But when you do look at the guys emerging, like you said, especially Levi Drake, I think Levi Drake was thought of as a practice squad guy from day one, right? Like, this guy's raw. We need to develop him. And then he's starting to get some game action. And they're like, this kid, he's coming along quicker than we thought. So that's a guy that you really don't want to leave off a roster too because of the energy that he brings. And no disrespect to Roy, but you don't see him bring energy like that. He's more of a, a little bit quieter, silent leadership kind of guy, right? He doesn't really bring a ton of hoorah energy that I think that Levi Drake does. And that's the kind of thing that can get teammates juiced up in game. He's got that infectious personality and, obviously you got to be able to play high-level football to make a roster and not just have a good personality. But the thing is, Levi Drake now has both. So I would be surprised at a cut for Roy. But once again, crazier things have happened.
Yeah, I mean, to me, it is. I'm hoping that he makes the team, but his performance early has at least raised some question marks for me. I'm going to hope that he can round things out and does make this roster because I do still believe in his potential, and I think it'd be foolish to give up on a guy like that this early. I'm going to read off a couple guys on the bubble, Nick, and I want to hear your thoughts on if you think that they can make it. Maybe it's I'll give you 3 options here. Make the 53, practice squad, or cut? And I'll just list off about 4 or 5 names here. I'm interested to see your thoughts on these guys.
All right, fire away.
We'll start off with Michael Juergens.
Michael Juergens, I'm going to go practice squad. Don't think he's ready yet. Watched him quite a bit on Saturday. Would like to see him get a little bit more swag in the trenches. Let's get some elbow pads on.
Yep.
Let's do a little bit more dirty work. But I think Juergens is a practice squad guy. Still see potential there. He can play guard and center, so that'll always help his chances. We'll go P squad.
Bobby McCain,
I'm going to say 53. I really think that we're kind of looking for another vet in the secondary, right? We obviously have Smith. Bynum is kind of coming into a veteran role himself, but Bobby McCain, after a big hit on Saturday, too, kind of proved that he can still bring a little bit of thunder to ball carriers. And I think his ability to play safety, corner, and nickel, that Coach Flores is all about versatility. I'm going to go 53 with McCain. I think he's the last DB we keep.
On the offensive side here, what about a guy like Trent Sherfield?
This is a tough one because this isn't a practice squad player, right? He's not going to play on a practice squad. Touchdown, he did score. That's nice. It was a broken play from the secondary, wide open corner route. I do think that Sherfield brings an element of toughness in the receiving game. He's not a burner with speed, but he's got good hands. He's strong. He runs good routes, and he's got a good understanding of the game. I'm leaning towards us keeping 6 receivers and Sherfield making the team.
Okay.
I could see us. It's very difficult because you're either going to lose one corner then, or I'm going to say that Sherfield makes a 53. I think they keep Jackson and Sherfield.
And that leads into my next question, and a guy that has performed well, given a large signing bonus in Jashawn Jones, the wide receiver out of Maryland. Where do you see his status as a Viking?
Well, it's got to be practice squad for me. And I don't know how that situation looks and how much interest will be garnered from other teams. I would assume a lot. But, me and you have talked about how impressive he's been during this camp.
Yes.
And me and Matt were at training camp last Saturday. Multiple periods, Jones going against our number one defense, making play after play, catch after catch. I didn't see him put a ball on the ground the entire day. He's a good route runner, good hands. I don't see a world where he's not on our practice squad to start. There was a couple days there where I was thinking maybe 53, right? A couple listeners of the show disagreed with me, but I think that Jones has put a really strong display together and justified that base salary that we gave him for sure.
Perfect. And I'm going to finish off with one of our fan favorites, and that is Duke Shelley.
I hate to say it, but I think that Duke's on the outside looking in right now.
Let's get him on the P squad at least.
Would he stick around on the P squad? I mean,
I think he's the type of guy that could. He's an old enough veteran that, especially with him signing the slate with the Vikings, I think he's a guy that you could stash on there at least for the first couple weeks and hope that, one, he doesn't get picked up, and two, you have a guy with a little bit more game experience ready to go if you need someone who's familiar with the system.
100%. I agree with you. Want to keep him right, but all of a sudden this corner room got really crowded with mid players. So you got Dwight McGlothern, who you can give a roster spot to potentially because of the flashes he's shown. The Vikings bring in Stephon Gilmore for a visit today, so there's a chance that he signs with the team as well if they can get the numbers right. And then you're looking at Fabian Moreau, who's probably going to make the team.
Yep.
Vet with experience. You look at Andrew Booth and Deshaun Wright. We trade for him. That's another 6'4" body in the room.
Man, I didn't even get him.
Caleb Evans, Shaq Griffin, and Murphy are already making the team. It's just tough for me to throw Shelley in that conversation. We went from having 4 or 5 corners on the roster to now having 10. So I would love to keep him around on the practice squad. Don't get me wrong. And I think that the disadvantage for Duke Shelley is he's not a practice player. He's a gamer. He gets in the game, and that's when he starts to show his ability, right? But I think that in practice and in training camp, maybe he doesn't look like the same player as if he's in a game. And also there's a reason he was available, right? Vegas signed him last year. Things didn't work out. There's a reason that he was a free agent, unfortunately, as much as we love Shelley. But like I said, I think the room's just gotten too crowded.
And I think that's a great lead-in. I, did write up somewhat of a updated 53-man roster projection. Do we kind of want to go down the line here, back and forth, and read off?
Yeah, let's go for it.
All right,
let's go for it. We'll start with quarterback. You got Darnold and McCarthy here. two. So
Yeah.
so there's the emergency third quarterback. So you think that that's Mullins?
Yes, I think that's Mullins. I don't know if you'd be able to slide him on a P squad, but I think you can keep him there as the emergency third quarterback. Honestly, I would have loved to keep him on the regular roster, not be the emergency, but with the depth of cornerback, D-line, and these other positions, safety, there's just not enough room for him to be anything other than the emergency QB option.
Any chance that Mullins is traded?
I do think that there's a small or a decent chance that he can be traded, especially with J.J. McCarthy showing how well he has played so far, at least, and Darnold being able to hold down that starter role that he's been kind of projected to have. So
I think they love Mullins, but him also playing 0 snaps in that preseason game,
that says a lot.
You know, there's some subtle messages I think that are being thrown there. I think Kevin loves him, but obviously we don't have opportunity for him to be a future player. There's other teams that will need a backup quarterback at some point here in the first couple weeks if it's not before the regular season starts. So that's maybe a bold prediction from us on the horizon. Maybe a Mullins trade. So
definitely, I like where your head's at there. I think it would be a good idea for, if we can and feel confident in our quarterback room without Mullins, to then recoup a late 6th, 7th round pick to help with those trades that we had from this past draft. So definitely not a bad idea there. Moving to running backs, I've got Aaron Jones, Ty Chandler, and Kene and Nwangwu making the team.
Mm-hmm.
I could see either or both of Myles Gaskin and Dwayne McBride hitting the P squad. Depends on how many they want to keep at that position, but I think these three are entrenched on the 53-man roster, especially with Kene's returnability.
For sure. And then we've got C.J. Ham at fullback. Of course, the Hammer's going to make it. I'm excited to see what Kevin O'Connell does with him. Obviously, such a versatile piece, can run the football, can catch the ball, can block, can catch a screen if you need to, plays all special teams. He's truly a chess piece for the team, and I'm excited to see CJ continue to play for this team. It's crazy how many different eras he's played through now and how many different Vikings teammates he's had. He's excited to be a part of kind of a new beginning and playing with a new quarterback, so excited for CJ's year.
Yes, sir. One of the OG Vikings there.
Mm-hmm.
Moving to wide receiver, this one was really tough. I kept it at 5. It could easily be 6. I went with Jefferson, Addison, Naylor, Powell, and Tristan Jackson. I think someone like Trent Sherfield, Jashawn Jones, or Lucky Jackson as a far kind of outlook could each have an opportunity or a case to get that 6th spot in the wide receiver room. But again, I think that they may lean to have 2 or 3 wide receivers on the practice squad that are maybe a bit younger. That provides them a little bit more roster flexibility at the beginning of the season. So I'm going to go with those 5 making the 53.
Yep, 5 or 6 there is going to be very interesting. And you got to have a guy ready to go on the practice squad, but it makes me think that guy is Jones.
I know.
With how good he's played in the camp. So I could see him keeping 5, potentially cutting Sherfield, and then having Jashawn Jones ready to go on the practice squad. But at the same time, like I said, Sherfield brings a different different element than the rest of these guys do. A lot of these guys are finesse guys, Jefferson, Addison, Naylor. I think Sherfield is a little bit more of a bulldog type receiver, if you will. So we'll move on to tight end. Obviously, T.J. Hawkinson, he's going to start the season on the PUP. He's not going to play. We don't know when the week that he's coming back is, but we worry about the initial 53, and that's Johnny Munt having the camp of his life, if I'm being completely honest. He's been a red zone target. Hands have been reliable. He's pretty much bringing in everything that's thrown at him. We're kind of seeing a different side of Johnny Munt, too. He's barking a little bit at defenders, getting in some scuffles. And he's a guy up in his upper 20s now, looking for a big year. And it was kind of a vanilla guy that a lot of people weren't very excited about. What does he bring to the team? But he's a Kevin O'Connell guy, and there was something he saw in him in L.A. to make him come up here. And I think we're starting to see that come into fruition. Munt having a great camp, and I expect him fully in the first few weeks to be making plays.
Yes, sir.
Then we got Josh Oliver, known for his blocking ability, but also you put the football in his hands. He's a lot to handle coming downhill. So he's on the roster for sure. And then we've got Nick Muse, and like you said, I think the most notable thing about Nick Muse is just the connection he has with McCarthy. It's crazy. Like, those two are on the same page.
Mm-hmm.
You can tell they get along. Probably hanging out a little bit outside of football, I would imagine. And we've got Nick Muse making the team, former 7th-round pick. Great value there.
Moving into the trenches here, we've got the obvious ones in Christian Darrisaw, Ed Ingram, Garrett Bradbury, Blake Brandell, Brian O'Neill. You got Reisner making the team. We got Walter Rouse making the team, who I'm very excited about. And then we finish off with David Quessenberry and Dan Feeney. I think this ninth position or ninth spot on this O-line comes down to Dan Feeney or Michael Juergens. It all depends on if this team wants to lean more into a veteran presence or if they are truly afraid that someone will scoop a guy like Michael Juergens up, because they both can play center guard. It truly is more of a veteran versus a long-term outlook between these two, and how confident you feel that you can stash a guy like Juergens on the practice squad.
All right, moving on to DNs, edge defenders. We got Jonathan Grenard, Andrew Van Ginkel, Patrick Jones, Dallas Turner, Gabriel Murphy, and Bo Richter. So tell me who's out then. Who's the first person out at edge?
Edge, we would be then cutting. So if Turner makes it,
Andre Carter.
Yes, Andre Carter, I think, is someone who has had the opportunity to show himself but has not. If you can slide him on the P squad, I think they do. A guy that I think is a for sure practice squad guy is Owen Porter, another guy who's played some outside linebacker, defensive end type role.
He showed up.
And then obviously we'd be cutting Taki Tayamani, if I'm saying that correctly, and then also Tyler Manoa, who I think may be more of an interior player, but those would be the cuts there.
Yeah, I like the way that edge room is rounding off. Just fresh legs. I can just see them rolling in and out. We're getting a lot of pass rushing ability with these six, and especially after what Bo Richter has shown. Kind of a thunder edge rusher. I think he can get really physical. We've obviously seen the strength on him, and for him to just come in and get 2 sacks in his debut, it says a lot about the talent we have in this room. How serious is Gabriel Murphy's injury looking? Obviously, he didn't play on Saturday. What's the update there?
Not a whole lot of news out on that. Undisclosed injury was somewhat of a surprise to many fans, and not seeing him in purple, as there's been a lot of hype coming from training camp on Gabriel Murphy. But until I hear something serious, I think that he is someone that, again, the Vikings gave a large signing bonus to, prioritized in undrafted free agency, and is someone that I think they're fully going to give a 53-man roster spot to, because he has not only showed what he can do early, but his build, his potential, I think, is right where Brian Flores wants it to be. Not comparing him to Ivan Pace, but I think that he has some of these raw skills that Brian Flores can build on, like a guy like Ivan Pace that he did, and was able to craft him into a starter. I think that Gabriel Murphy, if he can stay healthy and can learn this defense, in a timely manner, I think he could be a rotational pass rusher come midseason, hopefully.
Okay. That would be sweet. Let's move on to defensive tackle.
All right. In the trenches on the defensive side here, we've got Harrison Phillips, Jonathan Bullard, Levi Drake Rodriguez, Jonah Williams, who's maybe more of a defensive end, but we're going to put him in as a DT, and Jerry Tillery. This would leave Jacqueline Roy being cut. I have had Roy making this roster for a long time, but with Jonah Williams playing with the ones this week, seen an emergence in his uptick in snaps and his involvement, and have heard some good things from him. And then, again, on the flip side, not hearing really anything on Jacqueline Roy. At this moment, I'm going to have Jonah Williams making it over. Maybe they try to stash a guy like Roy on the P squad, but again, with him being a 4th or 5th round pick, I don't see him lasting long on the practice squad if given that opportunity.
No, me either. Moving on to inside linebacker. Obviously, the hometown hero, Blake Cashman, back in purple. Great to see him flying around a little bit on Saturday, making some plays. Excited about the year that he can bring to this team. Obviously, Ivan Pace Jr., budding superstar for this defensive unit, and he just looks comfortable out there already calling the defense. Number change to number 0 looks awesome. He's due for a big year as well. And then we got Kamu Grugier-Hill, kind of a journeyman in his late 20s, about 30 years old, has a lot of NFL experience. I think he's just a guy that the defensive staff can trust, because I think he's a high IQ player. He picks up on things quickly. I hate to say it, but kind of the opposite of Brian Asamoah. Brian Asamoah, very physically imposing, has a ton of speed and size, and just looks like a ball player. But I think that maybe a little bit slower in picking up the playbook, and not as trustable, I want to say, like a player that maybe lets his emotions get the best of him at times. And I think that Kamu is a veteran, kind of a pro's pro, who knows not to let that kind of thing happen. So we have Dallas Gant and Jabril Cox getting cut. Dallas Gant did play a great game, though. Don't be surprised if they try to keep him around in some form. This is a guy that was very highly graded this Saturday via PFF, and he played a ton of snaps. So certainly something there in Dallas Gant.
Yeah, Gant strikes me as a P-Squad guy for sure. And honestly, Asamoah is very much on the bubble. I kept him on here just because we had already mentioned that Andrew Booth gone, Lewis Seen cut. I just don't see a scenario where Kwesi is okay with then having his first 3-round picks either be cut or traded. I think he's going to try to keep him on. I still think he provides valuable time as a special teams player, and there's just a bit of me that I still think has a little bit of his game that we could unlock. He just is so athletic, such a thumper. I want to find a way for him to at least find some sort of niche role in this defense with Brian Flores, so I'm hoping for the best for him.
Yeah, and what is notable about Asamoah, too, playing through a torn labrum last year, this just came out recently, but for those of you that have had shoulder injuries, you try to play through it. It pops out again and again. You can never really find your stride, especially playing inside linebacker. You're using your shoulders as much as anybody on the football field. So I think just tried to battle through that last year. Maybe didn't have the production that he was looking for, but he's got that shoulder cleaned up and repaired now. So we'll see. This is a very big year and a very big last 2 preseason games for Brian Asamoah.
Definitely. Into the secondary we go. We're going to go with the locks here. We got Byron Murphy Jr., Shaq Griffin, Caleb Evans, Fabian Morrow, and then it gets interesting here. I factored in a guy in Stephon Gilmore, and whether it's him or a different free agent like a J.C. Jackson or a Dory Jackson, I still think they're going to bring in another guy. I'm hoping that it's Gilmore, and if it is, I've got to make in this roster. And then we finish off with either Dwight McGlothern or Nashawn Wright. I'm going to lean McGlothern, but with the Vikings bringing in Wright and Gilmore somewhat still not a certain thing, I'm going to leave these 2 on here for now. But I believe if a guy like Gilmore gets signed, only one of those 2 make it, and those would be the 6 cornerbacks that we keep.
Okay, yeah, that's going to be very interesting. And just want to reiterate again, rest in peace to Kyrie Jackson. I thought it was very classy what the Vikings did this past weekend, having his younger brother as an honorary captain. All staff members in the stadium wearing a KJ patch. There's definitely a lot of players that are playing this season for Kyrie Jackson, and we're still thinking of him after that tragic accident. So moving on to safety, we've got the vet, the captain, the legend, Ring of Honor, Hall of Famer, Harrison Smith, coming in for what might be his last year of football. We've been saying this the last 2 or 3 years now, but this really might be it. So really have high hopes for Harrison this year. I want to see him get a few more picks, get the ball in his hands, try to make something happen on a return. Always been such a fun player to watch. And, of course, he is a lock along with Cam Bynum, who is one of my favorite players on the team. I think one of the most reliable tacklers on the team, one of the smartest players in the secondary, and he is due for a borderline Pro Bowl season. So we'll see if he gets the recognition that he deserves from the NFL and from the coaches and the media. But Cam Bynum is a fantastic player on our back end, as is Josh Metellus. And it was fun to kind of see him playing some one high safety, playing some linebacker in the box, playing some edge rusher, such a versatile piece for this defense. And he's a guy who's now gotten some national media recognition. They're starting to take notice of Josh Metellus and how he's got that Swiss Army knife mentality for this defense. And then we move on to Theo Jackson, who you've been very outspoken for. I think he's a tremendous player as well. Known as probably one of the smartest guys in the room for the Minnesota Vikings. He would be he'd be a starter, I would say, for 33 to 30% of teams in the NFL. Like Definitely. You said, he's a guy that we just snagged from Tennessee, and he's going to play a big role for us. Then we've got Jay Ward and Najee Thompson. We still have Najee Thompson making the team, hoping to see him activated here soon, get some special teams reps. Yep, we need the ace to be in there versus Cleveland and Philly. He kind of talked with us on the show about how he wants to emphasize having a faster start to the season. And one way to start faster is to have repetition in, right? You don't want his first rep to be week 1 in a regular season game. So would like to see Najee. Hopefully he's getting close to being full speed here and full contact, and we can see a little bit of him in the next 2 weeks. So that's who we've got at safety. And then the specialists, of course, we've got Will Reichard, Ryan Wright, and Andrew DePaula. Kind of had a little bit of a battle there between Seth Vernon and Ryan Wright, but it looks like Ryan Wright is going to win the job. Seth Vernon, he put up a whole offseason of a battle, I would say, and it was the right thing to do after a sophomore slump from Ryan Wright.
Correct.
Had such a good rookie season, but you had to bring in a guy to put some pressure on him, and I think Vernon did that, but Ryan Wright was able to elevate his game with that pressure, and hopefully we get him back to rookie season form. The punter out of Tulane was phenomenal as a rookie, so we'll see what he can do in year 3. Now we're talking about on the bubble guys, Matt. We've talked about a lot of them so far. Guys like Bobby McCain, Duke Shelley, N'Keal Harry, Myles Gaskin, Lucky Jackson, Robert Tonyan, Michael Jurgens. These are all, last 5, first 5 out kind of guys. It's like the NCAA tournament right on the bubble. So we'll see how this shakes out. Obviously, you're playing for a job these next 2 weeks, and you're not going to see a lot of starters as you get deeper in the preseason. So it's opportunities to make a roster or make a practice squad. So excited to see how this officially shakes out. Let's talk a little bit about Cleveland next week and what we want to see. What do you want to see in terms of quarterback reps? What do you want to see in terms of wide receivers on the field? What do you want to see for running backs? How much do you think we see of true impact players and starters next week?
I'd like to see Darnold still get a drive here, but again, wide receiver-wise, I don't think Addison or Naylor need to play. No need to risk injury for them. They've shown what they need to. Run guys like Brandon Powell, Trent Sherfield, everybody else who's basically vying for those last few wide receiver spots. O-line, again, I don't really think they need to play a drive. I feel confident enough. Maybe, if anything, it's the guards. I think center and tackles are locked in. So
you got to get. I think you keep Ed Ingram out there.
Yes, definitely. I think Ed is the one most at risk in terms of losing his starting spot to a guy like Dalton Risner. I don't think a lot of people have thought about that. Everyone's thought it's either going to be Brandell or Risner. I think it actually could be Ingram or Risner based on his early play this year. But, defensively, too, a lot of the guys that played, Josh Metellus, I don't need to see him out there. Ivan Pace, the guys who have shown what they can do, let's let them sit these last 2 weeks. Let's get guys who we really want to see reps on. I want to see a lot of J.J. McCarthy. I want to see more Jaron Hall, even though it's a little bit rough to watch. We need to get the Dwayne McBrides, the younger guys, all the opportunities that they can get, because we need to see how much they can capitalize on this and not only keep our starters healthy, but to get a better idea of what this depth truly looks like, because these roster cuts are going to be very tough. Like we said, there's a lot of guys on the bubble fighting for positions. I feel bad for, the people who are put in these positions and have to make the decisions, because they're so hard, and this is a very deep roster. They've put together a lot of crucial pieces, but at the end of the day, it's a business, and they're going to have to get down to 53, and how they do that is going to be very interesting to see. But my point would be getting those depth guys as much opportunity as possible in Cleveland and in the joint practices coming up on Wednesday and Thursday. I'm very excited for that. Hoping for no scuffles, but hoping for a very competitive and active practice.
There's going to be scuffles. I feel like there always is. The intensity really gets raised up when you bring a different team into town, when you've only been practicing against your own guys for weeks. You start to bring another team in for joint practice. It's going to get chippy, but we're going to see, some Denzel Ward versus Justin Jefferson reps, some Jordan Addison and Greg Newsome reps. Like, we're going to get some real DBs. That's a real defense over there. We're going to get to see some Christian Darrisaw versus Myles Garrett one-on-ones. Like,
I love that.
They got some dogs on that defense, and it's a physical brand of football that they play in Cleveland. So I think it's a good team to get these joint practices going with, because, they're going to help us set the tone so we're ready to come out and be physical week 1 in New York. I want to see Jaron Hall this week, try to get out of the pocket a little bit, find some different arm angles. Seems to get a ton of balls batted down at the line. That's what I've kind of noticed on him. Yeah. I would like to see him thrive in the next 2 weeks. Who knows? Maybe we get a 7th-round pick for him or something if he's able to elevate his game and play a nice brand of football the next 2 weeks. But I just want to see him, get off script a little bit and show us a little bit about what you did at BYU. Make a big throw down the field, rolling out of the pocket, take some shots deep. Whether he's here in Minnesota or not, we're always hoping for his development. So let's see him make some strides these next 2 weeks. But we are going to be enjoying these last couple weeks or month of Minnesota summer. For those of you out there that are on the golf course, you need to download The Grint. The Grint is an energetic and growing interactive golf app and social network in one. Gives you scorecard picture service. Everything links with your USGA. Keep your handicap. Mobile app. You get notifications sent to your friends for birdies, 4 putts, triple bogeys, and streaks that you're on. So it's a great way for your friends to stay in tune with your round of golf and also keep all of your stats in one place on your phone. Check out the Grint, and don't play your next round of golf without it.
And it's summer. It's hot, and over 70% of people are dehydrated, and that's where Drip Drop comes in. It is boasted as one of the most elite hydration products and has half the sugar as its competitors and 3 times the electrolytes. So if you're looking to boost your game, maybe recovering from a hangover or just in the sun all day, my recommendation would be to go get yourself some Drip Drop at dripdrop.com or on Amazon, and you will see a fast difference and one that you will want to keep coming back to.
You certainly will. And we all know about the road work in Minnesota. Everything's bumper to bumper. Say you get a little fender bender. I want you to go trust the guys at Dent Heads Paintless Dent Removal. These guys are fantastic. They can do everything from an airplane to a car. These guys are locked in on your vehicle with over 400 5-star Google reviews. Nobody has a single bad thing to say about them. They're going to do an elite job, and they're going to do it for less. Check out Dent Heads Paintless Dent Removal today.
Are you looking for something savory on the rocks? Look no further than Stoli Vodka. It is sourced with the finest European grains and has a wide mixture of flavors that fits everyone's desires. If you're looking to spice up your drink game and bring a real treat to the party, go get yourself some Stoli today at your favorite liquor store.
All right, I love it, Matt. Now, one final thing to touch on here, and that is Stephon Gilmore. How do you see him fitting into this defense if he were to be signed by the Minnesota Vikings? Do you think it's a good fit? Is he too old? Is he able to bring that man coverage aspect that we're kind of looking for? What do you see if we were to bring a guy like that into this locker room?
I want to sign him ASAP. I have some slight concerns about his age, but overall his numbers have suggested that he can play still very well at a high level, and his veteran ability, what he's been able to do and see in the NFL, I think would be a huge impact to the secondary room. Pairing him with a guy like Harrison Smith, I think that's so much brains in that back end there. I just don't see a lot of negatives to this. We have the cap space to do it. It's not like we're hindering ourselves. I would assume it's only going to be a 1 to 2 year deal if it does get done. So again, we're not doing any long-term projections here in terms of limiting ourselves with cap space. We have an abundance of that. I think there's an obvious need in the cornerback room with the tragic loss of Kyrie Jackson and the ACL injury to Mekhi Blackman. Even with the signing of Fabian Morrow and Bobby McCain, some of these other guys, they do not move the needle like a guy like Stephon Gilmore does. I think that he can provide a impact similar to a guy like Pat Peterson, able to come in, provide some juice at a later part of his career, and have the pieces around him where maybe if he went to a worse team that he was the guy, he would get exposed. But when you have the pieces around you, especially this safety room, I think that they can not only, one, mask some of his deficiencies that maybe age is catching up to, but two, pair that with the elite athleticism and skills that the rest of the secondary has to truly give us a competition side from the secondary, and one that we really need, because as much as I'd love to say it, I don't have much trust outside of Byron Murphy and Shaq Griffin, and then it gets very much so-so. So I just want a little bit more trust in the secondary room, and that starts with Stephon Gilmore.
I totally agree with you, Matt. And it was about the most obvious thing from the game Saturday is that is our weakest position group on defense. Guys in Aiden O'Connell and Gardner Minshew putting up really nice games against us and making some really nice throws. So you could kind of feel that in the stadium on that first drive. They're marching down the field. It's almost a here we go again moment. Our corners aren't really doing anything. We're getting beat over the top. We're getting beat over the middle of the field. So I agree with you. It's time to address it. And this is a guy that has played so much football and seen so many different receivers in this league that he's at the age where he's going to win with his mind a little bit more than his body. But, hey, he's got a ton of experience, mentor some young guys. I hope he's excited to be with a program like this with a lot of potential and such good offense, high-powered offense with good leadership. So Stephon Gilmore can bring that bump and run man coverage that we're looking to play a little bit more of. He's also been very solid in zone over his career. You got to remember, just 4 years ago, this is a 99 overall rated Madden player, defensive player of the year. This guy was at the top of his game, and granted, he is on the back end. I see him as a little bit of an upgrade from what Patrick Peterson was 2 years ago for us. So I would like to see us get it done with Gilmore. Why not? Kind of roll the dice. This is a competitive enough division as it is, and with good receivers all over the place. You look at who Chicago is now attributed on their team with Keenan Allen, DJ Moore, Rome Odunze. We don't got three guys in the corner room right now that can lock up with those three, and that's just a reality of it at this point. Amon-Ra St. Brown, Sam Laporta. A lot of guys over there in Detroit too, and then obviously you see what that Packers have for that young receiving core between Watson, Wicks, Reed, Malik Heath, Romeo Dobbs. I mean, they've got players. We need to have trust in four guys at least. So Gilmore's a guy you can bring in and trust, and then you hope that a Caleb Evans can step up to the plate. And then we've got Griffin, Murphy, Gilmore, and Evans, and that could be a solid core if these guys play up to their potential.
Yes, sir. This division is no joke, and it's time to nut up or shut up. I hope that the Vikings go out and make a move to solidify the secondary, especially with the pads popping now. We have officially got a game under our belt. Things are truly starting to heat up. We are going into Cleveland, joint practices, second preseason game, and end in Philly. The season is going to be here before we know it, and so will the Great Minnesota Get-Together. And you may just find us out at that Great Minnesota Get-Together as well, so keep your eyes peeled for that. We might have some fun news coming there, but more importantly, the Viking season is inching closer and closer.
Absolutely, and we are produced by Pull Tab Sports. Look for us to do something joint at the Minnesota State Fair, potentially. More news on that coming, but we are live from Cubs Studios in Stillwater. This is the Vikes Verified Podcast, episode 91. Stay locked in with us. This season's about to get rolling. SKOL Vikings.
SKOL.
You're listening to the Vikes Verified Podcast.